There we go. So yeah, so this month we're doing something that we've never done before in GTA Brews, and that is we're actually having an advanced Cicerone, who is Lauren Richard, here to talk to us about pairing beer with food. And normally all of our presentations have always been, about either, water chemistry that Eric does, or there's presentations from brewers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this will give you a different idea about what is happening, or what can be done in the industry when you have a certain accreditation to your name. Lauren is currently curating, and Lauren can correct me if I'm wrong here, but she's currently curating a beer menu out in, I believe it's the Common out in Winnipeg, out in the Forks in Winnipeg, Manitoba, right? Now, Lauren's located here in Toronto, right? So that gives you an idea of what can be done, and I'm sure Lauren can speak to that as well. But she's going to be here to talk to us about pairing beer with food, two things I love. So take it away, Lauren.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Awesome. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. I feel like it's been forever since I've seen everybody in person. So I hope everybody has a drink, and I'm just going to jump right into it. Just going to share my screen here. Yeah, so like he was saying, I've been working in the beer industry for, I think, about 10 years now. And studying with the Cicerone and doing the advanced Cicerone has just afforded me so many really interesting opportunities, from people looking specifically for Cicerones for specific jobs or whatever it may be. I'm surprised as to how many people will just find me on the website, on the Cicerone website. They'll look through the directory and they'll just find me through there and send me an email, and I'll do a beer tasting for a bachelorette party. And this job that I now have in Winnipeg, which is pretty excellent because it's now combined all of the things that I've been doing over the years into one nice, amazing job. So I do curate the beer list for them, but then I also host beer dinners, and I do their staff training. And within that training, we do talk a lot about food pairing and just how to manage a draft list and issues with draft lines and all those things that you need to know when you're working at a beer bar. So lots of things. So basically with food and with beer, you're going to want to just first of all match the intensity. You're always going to want it to stand up almost on its own. You're going to find beers that are going to bring things out of the food that you didn't know were there before. You're going to find flavors that are very common in beer and food, because like Emily was saying, that Maillard reaction is essentially the same kind of thing that you're getting from your malted barley that you're getting in your food when you're roasting it and various things. There's so many similarities, which is so different from pairing with wine, because wine has a very different spectrum of flavors that aren't necessarily harmonious. So you're going to look at these three elements. So after you've kind of thought about the intensity, you're going to want to either cut or complement or contrast. You can obviously have more than one of these elements in your dish, but just to simplify things, once you're kind of playing around with this at the beginning, just kind of focus on one of the principles first. So the first principle being cut. So carbonation, alcohol, acidity, and hops, they all cut through rich fatty elements in food. So you're still going to think about the intensity. You know, you think French fries, you're going to go for something like a Pilsner or something on the lighter side that's highly carbonated, that's just going to cut through all that fatty oil and make the next bite more enjoyable, because pub food is heavy, obviously. So it's just why it goes so well together, is that it just makes sense to cut through all these flavors. So half of Weizen and fish and chips, half is light enough that it can pair with a lot of fish, just because fish tends to be on the lighter side. So like a half, and like wit beers, things like that can pair with lighter things like haddock and salads and things like that. And then IPA with a burger, because the hops are usually pretty like front facing and they can cut through the fattiness of the beef. Complementary, which is probably the one that my brain gravitates towards the most, is again that Maillard reaction, just because it's the correlation between the two ingredients are just so similar that it's so obvious once you actually look at it and break it down. So you're going to want to find the flavor element that both in the beer and the food have in common, and you just want to bridge that gap. If you can bridge more than one gap and find many different things that echo in both the food and the beer, then you're getting into something really special, and that's just going to be really layered. But pay attention to the intensity. This is really important if you're going to pair a flavor with a very similar flavor, because it can very easily cancel it out. So a lighter bodied stout isn't always the answer to pair with chocolate cake if the chocolate cake is rich and decadent. So it'll probably drown out that chocolate and roasted note from the stout if it's too light in body and in alcohol. So the beer will just be watery. So if it's just sort of like a standard strength, like, just under 5 ABV stout, and you're having a flourless chocolate cake, that's probably just going to be way too rich, and the beer is it's just going to knock it out. So you're going to want to look at something more like an imperial stout, or just go in a completely different direction and take a contrasting approach, which is the next principle, and just go with something big and fruity, something that just like classically makes sense, like fruit and chocolate. So the most straightforward complementary flavor is the Maillard reaction. So you can see that in your roasted meat, the caramelization on top of your roasted chicken. You're going to see those very similar notes in, like I said, the amber ale here, IPAs, specifically West Coast IPAs or English IPAs that have more of like that malty body and character to them. Hefeweizen and arugula, great starter because it's got that spicy sort of phenolic characteristic that kind of dances back and forth. Brown ale and grilled cheese, that's another fun one. Just because when you're making your grilled cheese, you get that nice dark side on your bread. That's wonderful. So yeah, I just brought this up quickly. This is a bit more detailed than what I'm going to go through, but it's really interesting once you start looking up just how similar this reaction is between food and beer. It just makes sense. So with contrast, so you're going to stick with the theme of matching the intensity, but it is possible to pair two things together that firmly stand alone and bring out things that you never knew were there. So it's helpful to find pairings that just classically make sense. Like I said, chocolate, berries. It creates a whole different experience, and sometimes these are the most exciting because you won't realize the flavors that they bring out that you never even knew were there. So that's really fun. So the chocolate cake and creek is a wonderful pairing. Barley wine and Stilton, it's a very classic pairing that, as someone who didn't like blue cheese before and didn't really gravitate or care for barley wine before, them together have changed my opinion on both of them entirely. So it really has brought out things that I didn't know existed. So that's very fun. And then the classic oysters and stout. And people always wonder, like, how does this make sense? Because it does fundamentally seem so very different. But when you're playing with all the 5 tastes, sweet, salty, sour, bitter, umami, this kind of brings in so many different contrasting elements. So salt reduces bitterness. And if you think about a dark piece of chocolate with salt, it's going to reduce the bitterness and accentuate the sweetness. So the same concept is with the oysters and the stout, where the sharpness of the brine will make the toasty chocolate like pop, and it'll become sweeter. And then the sweetness of the meat of the oyster will lessen the bitterness of the beer, leaving behind more flavor, bring out more of that chocolate, bring out more of that creaminess, and ultimately just kind of make both items pop more than if they were just on their own, which is super cool. I know this is not really super clear, but this is my favorite chart that I usually use just to remind myself of all these different interactions that happen when I'm looking at a meal and I want to think like, am I wanting to accentuate something or am I wanting to reduce it? Something like the bitterness of hops, they really increase tannins, they increase capsaicin heat, they make something that's hotter versus like a malty beer, like an amber ale or doppelbock or like even like a dunkel or something. Like those malt characters are going to kind of dial that back. So it just depends what you're looking to get out of it. If it was something that's a little spicy, I'd personally be like, yeah, I want some hot character. I want to bump it up a little. But if it's like ghost pepper wings or something that's like very hot, if I'm having like a big West Coast IPA, I'm probably just going to blow everything out and just be like, this is so hot, this isn't enjoyable. So in that case, I would automatically go towards something that's going to sort of like calm that down between bites so I can actually taste my food and enjoy my food. Beer and cheese pairing, which is my favorite thing. So matching cheese with wine is fraught with confrontations. The idea that wine and cheese are perfect companions is, I'm afraid, one of the greatest myths. And this is from a wine writer, because they all know it's true. So it does make perfect sense when you think about it. Beer and cheese are both traditionally farmhouse products. They're made usually by the same person, same location. They derive from the grass, the region, they're fermented, they're aged. You know, a lot of them just use what's readily evolved in that region, so then you get terroir involved. English cheddar, English IPA, they're both sharp, fruity, and nutty. So those echo each other. Those are very complementary. So when you can go that one step further and think like, oh, I'm going to get a cheddar, but I'm going to specifically go and get like a cheddar from this region and have a beer from that region, and they just make a lot of sense together. So I just have a few examples of just sort of classic pairings. The Stilton again with the barley wine. The Stilton's just magic with barley wine, but you can play around with different blue cheeses. Mascarpone, a sweeter cheese. There's other sweeter cheeses that you can pair with different sours that are really, really fun, just because they do like cut each other a little bit. The liverote that we were talking about with the Bjertegard, personally, not my thing. Super runny, stinkiest cheese in the world. So you're gonna put that with something that's got some must to it. Like you're gonna want to bring in those like aged characters and a little funk maybe, and that would be really fun if you're really adventurous. And then on the lighter side, goat cheese with beer. Think about salads, so perfect. Parmesan, it's like sharp and fatty. If you got like a really bitter like German Pilsner or something, that would just cut right through that so that they both stand alone and one doesn't overpower the other. All that kind of stuff. So if you want to host your own beer dinner, it's like super fun to do with your friends and super easy just to sort of think about these things in advance. So you always want to start lighter and finish bolder. And palate fatigue is definitely a real thing. If you want to do like a full beer dinner where it's like everything's an IPA, it's like that might not like have the same sensory experience that you're looking for, just because you might not start to appreciate things the same way. So you think about when I do a beer dinner, I think about what would I add to the dish if the beer was another ingredient. So like a lemon or like some citrus character that you would squeeze on a salad, or you know, a Caesar salad, or onto fish or something. If you think about how well that goes with certain things, different things, like if you think about like lamb and mint sauce and different things where you're thinking like, okay, like something, you know, herbal, something complementary, like what would be the sauce I put on this meal? What would be the condiment, you know, like and then start to think about your beer as that condiment, something like that, you know? So like smoke, like a rock beer with a meat and cheese board, it just makes sense. It's just perfect together. And then you got to also consider like how's the food being prepared? Is it roasted, grilled? How spicy is it? Do you want to accentuate that? Do you want that to calm down? So there's obviously so many options with beer and food pairing. It's super subjective. There's some that just make sense and the science can back it up. And there's some that don't make any sense at all and they still work as well. So it's more just like playing around with those three principles, and if you can find those similarities and you can kind of make those connections and you can justify it, then power to you. So I just threw down some examples of like what I've done in the past or would consider doing. Just some ideas. Dessert is another thing that's really difficult with wine. Of course, you can get a more dessert wine, something sweeter that can match the sweetness of your whatever you're eating. But beer is just so good with dessert. It just makes a lot of sense. It has a lot of body. The higher in alcohol, it can hold up to something that's rich. Um, yeah. So these are a few things. I don't know if anyone has any questions or anything. If there want it to be like, I'm gonna do a Q&A at the end. But if someone wants to raise their hand, I'm totally fine with that. Okay, so quiz time. So what would you like personally pair with a full English breakfast? So you have back bacon, eggs, they can be done anyway, grilled tomatoes, fried mushrooms, buttered toast, sausages. So there's a lot of different directions you can go here. And like, it's easy to look at a pairing and just say, okay, this is what I would pair with this cheese. It's a single item. But then you put that cheese in a meal, and now you're looking at maybe 5, 6, 7 elements. So where do you start? So I don't know if anybody wants to unmute themselves and argue a case. I would love that.
Is it? I'm willing to take a stab at it. I know people are shoving stuff into the chat there. English amber, coffee stout, smoked
Oh,
porter.
sorry, I can't actually see the chat.
No, it's
My bad.
okay. I can read it. I can read it out to you,
Oh,
Laura.
okay. No, I got
Right?
it.
So,
I got it. I'm good. I'm good. Okay, cool.
okay. So a bunch of people are throwing stuff out there. I'm going to suggest, based on what this breakfast looks like and what you've stated already, I'm going to guess it's something to cut the fat that you want to put in with this. So I would suggest something like a Pilsner or something like that.
Mm-hmm. It's not wrong. There's not really, with this one, there's not really wrong answers. But if you, like, there's going to be better answers than others. But yeah, you're also thinking about, time of day. You know, am I drinking this first thing in the morning? So maybe you're not going to want to push 5, 5, 5, you know, like, I mean, whatever, you do you. But
Yeah.
like, you know, you're going to also consider sort of that time of day as well.
Yeah.
I'd lean towards a Hefeweizen.
Hefeweizen, yeah. Hef is just traditionally great with eggs. So it's lighter, it's highly carbonated, it cuts through all this fat because this is a pretty heavy breakfast. And then there's a lot of clovey phenolic character in the Hefeweizen, so you're gonna kind of get some of that character in some of the roast and some of the grill, like things like that the phenolic will kind of like play off each other, so that's totally can work. I see Eric says coffee stout, and that is, where am I here? Coffee stout. That was one that I had first because if you want to just go straight for like, hey, I'm not gonna have a coffee, I'm gonna have a coffee stout. It goes with breakfast. It makes sense. But then you can also do like a Schwarzbier or something that has that roast, has a lighter body, lighter alcohol. It is breakfast after all, and you can kind of make those correlations with the meat, and it's still like decently carbonated, and you get the roast character that's going to come out of all the roasted tomatoes and all that stuff. And then of course Hefeweizen. I personally would probably go with a Hef because it does make sense with eggs and just a breakfast, and it's just refreshing, and it's going to make your meal feel like it's not as heavy. Okie doke. I keep looking at the chat and then it locks me out. Okay. What would you pair with a pesto pasta? Bucatini pesto, which is basil, pine nuts, lemon, olive oil, parmesan, garlic, and charred tomato. This one is not as broad, I would say. This one's a little bit more specific, and this is something that I've experienced on my exams. They've presented me with pesto, and at the time it's like, you really get into your head about it because pesto is very bold. It's very dominating, and you want to match that intensity again. So I'm just going to pull up the chat here. Italian pills, basic lambic, pink peppercorn saison. All right, barley wine always. Yes, yes, come on. We know. Saison, Czech pale. Yeah, yeah, so this is in the world, the Saison. Yeah, I'm kind of in that Saison world. You're going to want something that has a higher alcohol, high carbonation, and all that phenolic character is going to go really, really well with the basil, which is going to be like the real strong point of this dish. But you don't necessarily want to go with something that's darker because that malt character is not really complementary with anything in that dish. There's nothing really to kind of tie that in. So I personally would just stay on the lighter side, really highly carbonated, again, to cut through. And then you get all the Belgian phenolic character in your triple, in your Belgian Golden Strong, which is a little bit more bitter. I would say the triple is the number one. And then the Golden Strong is sort of like a pretty good option too. And then, of course, the Saison is just great to pair with a lot of lighter, creamier kind of pasta dishes. Yeah, Italian pills with basil. Yeah, I mean, it does make a lot of sense. And Italian pills, I find, tend to be really floral, and you get some earthiness from it, and it does just pair really well. So I'm currently drinking a couple things, actually. Not just sampling a couple things. We'll put that. So I have a really kind of fun cheese that I happen to have. It's a sriracha chili cheddar. So I was like, oh, this could be cool. So initially I thought, okay, IPA, right? Because it's not going to be super spicy, but it's going to go well with an IPA. And then I was rummaging around my fridge. And so first thing I pulled out was the headstock. So we've got the West Coast IPA that is, has some malt character to it, more traditional. And from my memory, like quite a firm bitterness, but a West Coast bitterness. This time around when I'm drinking it, I'm actually getting a lot of fruit off of it, which I don't remember like 8 years ago. I don't know. So initially I tried them together and I was thinking, it's just not quite matching up for this cheese because it is so almost sweet and sharp at the same time. So then I pulled out this Doppelbock from Container Brewing, which is in BC. I recently discovered them. They're awesome. And I tried them together, and I was on mute and my camera was off, and I was like, holy shit, like this is incredible. This Doppelbock with a spicy cheddar is like, it wasn't my first choice, but because there's so much of this like sweetness in the cheese, the Doppelbock just it holds its own. They're two separate things, but they're just accentuating each other, and it's like, this isn't where my mind went initially, but it's fantastic. So you always kind of just got to play around. And yeah, so that's my presentation, and if we want to chat, that would be great.
Thanks, Lauren. Let's open it up and find out if there's any questions or any comments, or if people are thinking differently about their food and what they're eating and what they're drinking. I don't know if there's anything coming through in the oh, yeah, there you go. Abjeet actually has a question. He says, you passed the certified Cicerone written exam. I'm leaning over this way because that's where my other monitor is. So, so he said he passed the certified Cicerone exam. Well, congratulations on that. And he's got his tasting and demo exam on April. So any tips?
Well, I'm hoping that you've gotten access to the off-flavor kits. They're very expensive in Canada, unfortunately, because we have to order them from the States. Generally, people will split them 6 ways, but I just kind of divided mine up into 6 little like baggy packages, and I just used mine multiple times, and I just kept doing it over and over and over. It's really the only way, is just to train your palate to really just identify these off flavors. So the certified focuses on oxidation, diacetyl line infection, which is acetic acid and diacetyl, acetaldehyde, DMS, and maybe one more. And then the advanced adds on another 7. So I would say, look at what is currently in the LCBO because your proctor will be choosing what's in the LCBO. That's just kind of like a they're going to choose something that's fresh and local. So if you kind of go the week of and you're like, all right, I need a great example of a Hefeweizen, I need a great example of a West Coast IPA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and just kind of get familiar with like what's fresh and current. Might help trigger something in the moment.
There you go. He asked, what about the demonstration part of the exam?
I think I can say this because I don't think it's a secret, because I think it's been the same for years. They used to be different, but now they've kept it the same. So you go into a room and there's a camera set up and you sit in front of the camera, and then you have to take apart a draft faucet, and you have to name every part, and you have to put it back together, and you have 2 minutes, and you got to do it as fast as you can. And there's like, wow. I think 11 or 12 little pieces. So yeah, I don't know. It's just like, you're just going as fast as you can, and you're like, boo, 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 boo. Yeah, it's silly.
We had a question. May, you had a question. I know that you got your hand up. So, and then I know Guillaume, you asked one as well. So,
am I first or is Guillaume?
No, you're gonna go first, and then I'll get Guillaume.
Well, just because what you were saying earlier actually reminded me, I'm actually organizing a bachelor party in a few months. So I was wondering what suggestions you'd have for that are low budget, because we're all pretty broke.
Right. Yeah. Are you doing it together? Like in person, rather?
It's in person, but it's in Thunder Bay.
Okay.
So it would have to be not the most diverse selection of beer up there.
Right. Do you have the opportunity to sort of get the grocery list and bring things with you?
Oh yeah, I can tell him to bring tell the groom to bring whatever food, and I can probably just throw whatever beer into my suitcase and such.
Yeah.
So it's like, this just gave me an idea. I'm like, well, since I'm organizing this, I might as well this might be interesting and fun.
Yeah, super fun. Yeah, it's like I always go towards cheese because you can share that, with so many people.
Yeah, it's 3 people.
Then yeah,
huge COVID-friendly bachelor party.
Right. So I would just, I don't know, like maybe the host has a thing for a particular style. Some people are like, I want to do a flight of IPAs. Like, show me the IPAs from the world, just to get an idea of. And then you can think like, okay, let's pair something from each region. Find a dish that's like local. Pair something with an English IPA. Pair something with a hazy IPA, like things like that. Or
I don't think, they don't know beer whatsoever. So this is going to be an interesting experience. Beer is my thing, weed is theirs. So
well, like the simpler the better. Like sometimes I overthink things, and then I remember that it might be someone's first time even thinking about this or experiencing this together. So you can really just go to just look on the web and just say, like, what are some really classic pairings? And just some of the really baseline stuff is just gonna blow your mind. Like, it's just because a lot of people, I overthink things. I'm like, I want to make it really complicated, but it doesn't need to be.
Okay. Yeah, I overthink everything too. So that's why I was just like, Okay,
or do a beer and weed pairing and then just have chips for the food.
Honestly, at this rate, I have no idea what to expect from this bachelor party. It's 3 people in a cabin near, like, on the outskirts of Thunder Bay for 3 days.
Whoa, 3 days. Sounds weird.
Yeah, so it's just like, okay, well, we're gonna be bringing the hookah, I think, and some weed and yes.
So then, so that's another thing. Like, think about what do people want when they're stoned, and just go in that direction of like, all right, this is gonna be like the best munchies. Just do like a munchie pairing.
Okay. Yeah, I could do a munching pairing too, because like I just thought, I'm like, we haven't planned any food. I'm like, I could do like some food and beer and some weed and beer, and I know nothing of weed, so this is going to be an interesting experiment.
Yes, I'm not well versed on that.
I'm sure I can Google that, but we could have maybe a beer pairing and then weed and then munchie pairings.
Then a munchie pairing, yes. Perfect.
Okay. Oh, someone's suggesting some Thunder Bay breweries. Okay.
I know that Guillaume's question was, he says as he looks for it. Oh yeah, he asked. This is a very interesting question. What was your most unexpected pairing success? Something that you obviously didn't expect that would work. That was clearly a big hit.
Yeah, I mean, this Doppelbock and spicy cheddar was like, whoa. And I know that's like, it just happened, but yeah, it's like, it's shocking when you find something you didn't even think about. I would say like the first time I ever had the blue cheese and barley wine, that was pretty monumental for me, that I'll always remember, just because at the time I don't know, I was probably like 23, 24, maybe 23, and I didn't like either of those things at that time. So yeah, like 10 years ago, that blew my mind. And it just made me think about things in such a different way of, I always think about rock beer and people say, I don't like smoked beer. And I'm thinking, or people say, I love this. People are always like, this is good. I couldn't drink more than one of it. I'm like, me too. Like, that's not necessarily a normal thing to like sit down and session a smoked beer. So yeah, that's fine. Have one. But like, I think something like a smoked beer it's just meant to go with food. And then that experience will change your opinion about the beer. Another thing would be maybe like gueuze and like lambic and meat and cheese and pickles and ferments and things like that. Like pairing that with like a charcuterie board is delightful, because that style is so complex and you've got so many rich, acidic, like sharp things on that. So that pairing, I can't go wrong. If you have people over and you do like a big charcuterie spread with cheese and ferments and you open up a really nice bottle of lambic, your friends are gonna be like, you're a genius.
That's cool. I that's one of those things. I guess I know I never think about it as much as thinking about what beer should I have with the food that I've cooked, and this is something that's given me pause and kind of made me think a little bit more about it. I know that they had, where was I looking at? Oh, I know Owner had a question. He had a question about styles for pairing. He goes, if we can't find them locally, like a good English barley wine or an old ale, how do we go around pairing the beers we never tried? So in other words, if you can't find the style, but you kind of want to pair it, like I know Hefeweizen is pretty predominant. You can find styles in the LCBO, etc. But like I know old ale, we mentioned the Jordan St. John Helliwell collab with Muddy York that is out now, but it's not something that's around all the time, right? So
Yes.
do you sub other styles, or do you just look elsewhere, or?
Yeah, generally, like when you do find some of those things, like a Lichtenheiner, or someone's making something historical, it's a treat, and like you want to kind of get your hands on it and play around with it. But yeah, certain things are just not going to be readily available. There are definitely subs. I would say there's certain things that are better with certain things, like let's say barley wine and Stilton. But you and I were talking earlier. You're like, I don't have this barley, this Stilton, or this blue cheese is not quite as sharp. It's Stilton or this and that. And I was like, well, then go with an IPA. Go with like a malt forward IPA that's just like a baby version of an American barley wine. Like you just kind of find like similarities and tweak things. And unfortunately, we don't always have access to a lot of international styles in Toronto. I'm from New Brunswick, and sometimes I go home and I see more availability in New Brunswick than in Toronto, and it kills me. They do have a bit more access to things coming up through the States pipeline. I don't know. So often I had to just get in a car and go down to Buffalo and just fill my trunk and study stuff that I was getting from the States.
Interesting. You mentioned Lichtenheiner, and I know that's come up a couple times with me, not because I wanted to brew it, but I knew Colin Green has actually brewed Lichtenheiner, and I was always told never ever try to brew this beer because it's a sour smoked beer. So
I love it. I love it. If anyone's making one, please, I would like to try some because I actually love it.
I know
it's
Colin.
So fun.
Yeah, Colin has made it. I can't remember tasting it, but
Folly had one.
sorry, who did?
Folly.
Folly did.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. So I mean, these are the types of things that I don't know. It probably combines the type of beers that most people would go, they don't want to
Mhm.
touch, right? Sour
Mhm.
beer, and then you add in smoke, and it's like, no. But I'm sure that
It's a dangerous combo.
yeah,
And
right.
luckily,
Too
it's
much of one or the
usually
other, and it blows it.
Yeah.
exactly, and it's usually low in alcohol. It's like 3.5%, 4% maybe, which I love. I love low alcohol beers. So if it's done right and it's balanced between the alcohol and the smoke and the sour, it's like you could pair that with like a lighter meat and cheese board, and it would be awesome.
Cool. There was a couple other questions that came through. Cheyenne had a question: favorite style or specific beer to cook with? I'm thinking beer, cheese, soup, mac and cheese, stouty desserts. Right.
Sorry, I'm just eating all this cheese. It's very good. I, as a rule, if you're going to be cooking with anything and like bringing anything to heat, don't use anything with a high hop, like any like high hop character or like bitterness specifically, because it's going to really accentuate in the food. It'll make your food taste a bit green. It'll make it bitter. It will bring out like kind of an unfamiliar bitter character. So I would more like go with cooking with more like maltier styles. I think anything acid, I don't think I've messed around with really, but it makes a lot of sense to put like stout or like doppelbock or double like in a like a chili. Again, you just think about the elements that are harmonious between the two and things that you want to accentuate. Like if you're making a batter for like fish and chips and you're putting beer in, you're not going to want to use something that's hoppy. Like if you have a pilsner for that, you're going to want to choose something that's not hop forward. Maybe go with a Helles instead. Just because it might come out harsh. I've definitely seen, excuse me, chocolate cakes come out with beer that they accidentally used like a hoppy American amber versus like a softer Dunkel. And it's like, yeah, it's malty. You're correct. But at the end of this, your cake tastes like weed. So just be mindful of the bitterness.
Wow. Yeah, I guess maybe May you could make a cake for those folks up in Thunder Bay. Right. So
I'm already planning on making brownies too. Like this is already part of the plan, and I have no idea what am I doing. I'm like, why is the non-pothead doing this?
Mussels. Ed made a comment that mussels cooked with Duvel is awesome, right? I've it sounds tasty. I remember having
even though it's got a good bracing bitterness to it. It's lovely with the mussels. Like just do mussels but just Duvel instead of white wine.
Interesting. You mentioned oysters and stout, Lauren, and I know that oyster stout obviously is a thing. And is that why that's a thing? Because they do meld well together, like.
Yeah, oyster stout's such a funny one because they'll call it oyster stout, and a select few of them are made with oysters, but then a select few of them are definitely not, and the intention is just to be paired with oysters. So that's always kind of confusing. I have to inquire and say like, which one is this oyster stout? And I think so. I think it's just one of those pairings that became sort of a classic early on, and they're just leading you in that direction for your meal, or people are weird and they are throwing oysters in beer and calling it an oyster stout, just like prairie oyster stout, which is very different and not from the sea, and where they add actual prairie oysters to the beer, which I don't know. You guys are all weird.
There is Old Cock Ale, right? So
Patrick Brown had a question. He says, when curating a beer list for the bar resto, like the Common or otherwise, are you primarily focusing on food pairing, or are you drawing significant inspiration from anything else for the overall selection?
It would definitely be a seasonal thing. I would think that's kind of where I gravitate towards, or you get more focused on a theme. Because I think a lot of people are doing beer dinners that are a little uninspired, that are just a beer dinner. Just like, this is our menu. What do we currently have that would pair with this item that we already make? And then just release it to the public and sell tickets. And like that to me is sort of like, well, this person could come in and they could conceptualize this for themselves. So I try to go a little above and beyond, where you work with the chef and you try to make a new, if it is an item that's currently on the menu, try to make a new element of it with a beer. Like, so then you get into cooking with the thing that you're going to be pairing with it. So that's definitely an option, to just incorporate the beer into every dish and make it something that someone couldn't order regularly. Or you go to the thing where it's like, okay, it's fall, let's make it themed, let's make it really cozy in here. It's not just about like the food and the beer for me. I like to, set the tables a different way and have the different lighting and, things that really make it feel like immersive, and that it's not just they're coming in and doing a pairing for themselves, like something that's really different. So yeah, I'll definitely draw inspiration from just like local items and seasonal items and things that are unique. Like, I'm currently ordering for the year for the Common, so I'm thinking like the beer dinner that I'm doing in the fall, what am I going to bring in specifically as like some crazy thing to specifically pair for this one dish that I'm thinking of, So it is a lot of seasonal thinking, I guess. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it did, definitely. Just trying to give me some ideas. I help curate for like a local small town bar that, being a small town, there's still a lot of hesitation to go towards craft beer. So we're trying to expand people's palates and just trying to look to see what else, because we've looked at, again, beer pairing and trying to come up with recipes that work either with the beer or that would complement it, and just looking for other ideas really on my end.
Yeah, for sure. And like, if you want to, you can do a theme that's not related to seasons. You can, if you're trying to draw in a specific crowd that's, I don't know, like maybe a movie crowd, be like, let's do 4 things from 4 iconic movies and let's market this towards like a movie club or something, and it'll be like a dish from the movie, and then you can have fun doing the pairing, and there's like a story behind it. Or you can just like get creative, so people are like, they might not come to a beer pairing event because that's foreign to them, but they're like, oh, this is weird, and it also meets a different interest of mine, and then now they're introduced to it.
So basically the sky's the limit. Pick something and perfect, awesome.
Yeah, if there's so many beer dinners happening that if I see one that's like just kind of doesn't really have a theme, or doesn't have like something it's like focusing on, then I'm sort of like, okay, but I want to find something that's more like, this was created for this one night only, and that's just a more special experience.
Excellent, thank you.
Lauren, have you ever found that, like you said, you're working with the chefs, etc., when you're getting your menu together or getting your beer list together or to curate, have you ever found some pushback from chefs because they'll say like, oh no, that's never going to go with, or do you get full buy-in from the chefs as well, right?
Generally don't get too much pushback. They're usually like pretty excited to do this kind of thing because it's fun for them too, They're like, this is great, like let's figure this out together. They might have their own opinions. They might also be like, well, what about this, and that's great too, because chefs come from another angle and know more about ingredient interaction sometimes than I do, of course. So yeah, it's usually a collaborative thing. I like for it to be. Sometimes they're not super involved, just kind of different from space to space. When I was working for Goose Island in 2016, I was doing the beer dinners. I did about maybe 15, and I was working with a different chef every time. Sometimes it was thrown together based on their availability, and sometimes it was really in depth and really fun and really collaborative, and it's just kind of dependent on the person and their passion. If they're a great chef, they're usually all about it.
Interesting. Cool. Oh, I was going to ask if, with respect to like the beers, have you ever been in a position or a situation where they say to you, "This is the beer that we've got to work with. Could you come up with something?" Right? Versus the situation where it's like, okay, what's the idea, and then I can go out and hunt the beers down, sort of thing.
For sure. Yeah, I've definitely had like bit jobs, one-off things where it's a company that's like, these are the 3 things we have. So it'll be centered around their products. Sometimes I'm not in a position to be able to bring anything unique in. It's just like, this is what we have on draft. This is what we have in the kitchen. Make something work. But the real fun ones are when you can give your input and they're open to sourcing new things to make an experience that's different. You know, you want to stand out from other restaurants. So you have to go that extra bit of creativity. You have to put, the passion into it to get people inspired to spend $80 on a ticket or $110 on a ticket, like whatever it is. Like, you got to make it worth their while. Otherwise they could just come there and order that with that beer, and what's the difference? So you're giving them an experience.
True enough. Was there any other questions? I don't want to suck up all the oxygen, so I'm just going to take a quick look here and see. I don't know if there's anybody else who had anything. Beer cocktails. There's a good one.
Oh yeah. Beer cocktails are great, super fun. Again, like, I pull back from IPA and like bitterer things, but it's not impossible by any means. But a lot of beer that's higher in alcohol and has more of a sweetness to it will inevitably just go great as that sweet component in your cocktail. Stout with like a mint liqueur. It's like around Christmas time, or when you're I've had some shaken cocktails with triple and Belgian beers that are really good. You just get a lot of like fruity characters and clove and all the like phenolic stuff that works usually really well with, like, it can be like a very sophisticated cocktail, I find, when you use like Belgian beers. Yeah, I mean, I haven't been doing much with it because it's expensive. Like, if you have a beer cocktail on at a bar, like, I think you don't see them very often unless it's draft. If you have something on draft that's easy, you can put 2 ounces in a cocktail. But yeah, I don't see it that often, and I think we should see it more because it can be done really well. But I need to mess with that more. Maybe that's something I'll focus on. Any beer food pairing events that I'm excited about? I don't have anything currently planned. I'm just starting to get back out into the real world, which is weird. I do work at Godspeed, so come by and visit me there. And we may be doing a bit of, maybe I shouldn't say this, but might be some beer pairing events in the future, which I'm hoping that'll be really fun. Love working with Vim, obviously. It's an honor to be there to learn from him, and I think we're going to do some cool stuff. So that's cool. More Opal soon. That's a Muddy York or a Mad Eye question. Is he still here?
No.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. Oh, hey, Maddie. Yeah, I mean, the response to it has been awesome over the years, and Schwarzbier is one of my favorite styles. Always has been. I think Schwarzbier, mild, anything 3.5%, and like Lambic. Those are like my loves. And lager. Good Pilsner. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, that's this weekend. Good point, Abjeet. He's excited for the Quebec beer event, right?
It's going to be awesome.
Oh.
It's going to be really cool. It was birthed because of some miscommunication about Péché Day. The date kept getting moved around. It's going to be kind of a mini Péché Day. So, and then we have tons of stuff. We have tons of stuff from Quebec that is just never been here or never been anywhere. It's going to be cool. I'm working all day on Saturday, so come by. And it's Sunday. It's Sunday as well. So be cool.
That's going to be really cool. That is
Yeah,
going to be really
it's gonna be
cool. It does very well. I think it'll return again in the fall as a seasonal release. Wow, look at you, Mr. Muddy York, releasing things and telling people about stuff. So, does anybody else have any other questions for Lauren? If not, I'll stop the recording. I'd like to say first, thank you, Lauren, for coming and for presenting to us tonight, and definitely expanding our repertoire outside of just beer, right?
Yeah, it's like once you break it down, you're like, wait a minute, did wine con us this whole time?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes, they did. Big wine has had a hold of the industry for far too long, so it's time to take it back.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.